My sister ruined the wedding cake I made, and I didn't help her, which exposed years of family favoritism and unresolved tension. I am a 28-year-old man from a middle-class family in a small Midwestern town. My parents, Carol, 58, and Mike, 56, worked tirelessly to provide for us. Mom was a high school English teacher, and Dad worked as a nurse at the local hospital. They instilled in us the values of hard work and humility, always emphasizing that character matters more than material possessions. Growing up, our house was modest but filled with love. We had weekly game nights where we gathered around our old dining table to play board games. Dad would make his famous chocolate chip cookies, and Mom would regale us with stories from her teaching days. Those nights are some of my fondest childhood memories. My older sister, Lisa, 32, and I were close as kids. We'd spend hours building elaborate Lego structures or exploring the woods behind our house. Lisa was always the leader in our adventures, her imagination running wild as she created fantastical stories about the magical creatures inhabiting our backyard. Things started to change when Lisa entered high school. She was always bright, but in her freshman year, she really began to excel academically. Her teachers praised her intelligence, and she started winning awards in various academic competitions. I was proud of her, but I also felt a growing shadow as Lisa's achievements began to overshadow my own average performance. The real turning point came when Lisa was offered a scholarship to Crestwood Academy, an elite private high school in the nearby city. It was a prestigious opportunity, one that our parents couldn't pass up. Despite the financial strain of additional expenses not covered by the scholarship, they took on extra shifts and cut back on expenses to make it work. From the moment Lisa started at Crestwood, it was like she entered a different world. She made friends with kids from wealthy families, started using words we'd never heard before, and began to show disdain for our modest lifestyle. The first time she brought home a friend from school, I overheard her apologizing for our quaint house. I remember feeling a mix of embarrassment and anger. This was our home, the place where we made so many happy memories. As Lisa's high school years progressed, the divide between us grew wider. She rarely joined our family game nights anymore, always claiming she had too much homework or plans with her new friends. When she did join us, she'd make snide comments about how provincial our traditions were. It hurt to see the sister I once idolized turning into someone I barely recognized. Despite the changes in Lisa, our parents continued to praise her every achievement. They proudly told anyone who'd listen about Lisa's perfect grades, her position as captain of the debate team, and the prestigious universities that were already showing interest in her. Meanwhile, my solidly average grades and participation in the school choir barely seemed to register. I tried not to be resentful, throwing myself into my own interests. I joined the school's baking club and discovered a passion for creating delicious treats. The kitchen became my sanctuary, a place where I could express myself and feel proud of my accomplishments. Dad would sometimes join me in those moments, and the kitchen became our special bonding time. After high school, Lisa got into an Ivy League university on the East Coast. The day her acceptance letter arrived, our parents threw a big celebration. They invited the whole extended family, and Lisa basked in the attention. I remember standing in the corner of our living room, watching as relatives fawned over Lisa, feeling invisible. I stayed local for college, attending the state university just an hour's drive from home. I worked part-time at a local bakery to help pay for my education and to contribute to our household. Lisa rarely came home during her college years, always claiming she was too busy with internships or networking events. When she did visit, she'd regale us with stories of her important connections and the luxurious lifestyle of her college friends. After college, Lisa landed a job at a prestigious consulting firm in New York City. She moved into a sleek apartment in Manhattan, her life seeming more and more like something out of a glamorous TV show. Meanwhile, I had started working full-time at the bakery where I'd worked during college, slowly saving up money with the dream of opening my own place someday. Fast forward to now, I finally achieved my dream of opening my own small bakery in our hometown. It's been open for a year, and while it's not making me rich, it's doing well enough that I've been able to hire 2 part-time employees and even help our parents with some of their expenses. Mom and Dad have been supportive, often stopping by to sample new recipes or just to chat during slow afternoons. Lisa, on the other hand, has continued to climb the corporate ladder. She's now a senior consultant, constantly posting on social media about her business class flights, fancy client dinners. My best friend since childhood, Samuel, was clearly uncomfortable, trying to politely excuse himself, but Lisa wouldn't take the hint. At one point, Lisa stumbled and spilled her red wine all over her expensive white dress shirt and suit jacket. She started making a scene, loudly complaining about how much the suit cost and demanding that someone clean it for her. People were staring, and I could see Andy looking upset on what was supposed to be his perfect day. Part of me wanted to help Lisa to save her from embarrassing herself further and ruining Andy's wedding, but another part of me felt like she deserved to face the consequences of her actions for once. So, I stayed where I was, pretending not to notice the commotion. Things escalated when Lisa tried to approach Samuel again. She tripped over her own feet and fell face-first into the wedding cake, the three-tiered masterpiece I had spent weeks perfecting. The entire room went silent. Lisa was covered in cake and frosting, looking absolutely ridiculous in her ruined designer suit. She looked around the room, her eyes landing on me. I could see the silent plea for help in her eyes, a glimpse of the sister I used to know peeking through her drunken haze, but I turned away, leaving her to deal with the mess she created. Our parents rushed to Lisa's aid, helping her up and quickly ushering her out of the reception hall. I stayed behind to help Andy and his new husband salvage what was left of their wedding celebration. We managed to save the bottom tier of the cake, and Andy was gracious enough to laugh off the incident, saying it would make for a memorable wedding story. But as I watched Andy cut into what remained of the cake I had poured my heart into, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions: anger at Lisa for her behavior, guilt for not helping her, and a deep sadness for how far apart we had grown. Was I wrong for not helping my sister in her moment of humiliation, even though she had been insufferable for years? Should I have put aside my resentment and stepped in to help her, or was it right to let her face the consequences of her actions for once? It's been about a month since Andy's wedding, and a lot has happened. I thought I'd update you all on the situation with Lisa and how things have unfolded in our family. The day after the wedding, I woke up to a barrage of angry texts from Lisa. She accused me of abandoning her and making her look like a fool. Some of her messages were barely coherent, a mix of drunken typos and bitter accusations. I didn't respond to any of them, deciding it was better to let her cool off before attempting any kind of conversation. Later that day, I received a call from our parents. Dad was in tears, and Mom's voice was tight with disappointment. They berated me for not helping Lisa, saying I should have put aside my feelings and helped my sister in her time of need. I tried to explain my side of the story, but they were too focused on Lisa's embarrassment to listen. The call ended with Dad sobbing and Mom telling me I needed to apologize to Lisa. I spent the next few days in a fog of conflicting emotions. On one hand, I felt guilty for not helping Lisa. Despite everything, she was still my sister. On the other hand, I was angry at Lisa for her behavior, angry at my parents for always taking her side, and angry at myself for still caring what they thought. A week after the wedding, our grandfather, Papa Ross, invited the whole family for Sunday dinner. Papa Ross has always been the patriarch of our family, the voice of reason in any dispute. He lives in the old farmhouse where my mom grew up, a place that's always felt more like home to me than our own house. I was hesitant to go, knowing Lisa would be there, but I couldn't say no to Papa Ross. As I drove up the winding driveway to Papa's house, I was transported back to childhood summers spent running through his vegetable garden, helping him make strawberry jam, and listening to his stories about our family's history. Papa Ross was the one who first taught me to bake, patiently guiding my small hands as we kneaded bread dough together. The dinner started off tense. Lisa wouldn't look at me, and our parents were giving me the cold shoulder. But Papa Ross, bless his heart, wasn't having any of it. After the main course, his famous pot roast that always reminds me of cozy Sunday dinners, he cleared his throat and addressed the elephant in the room. "Now, I've heard about what happened at Andy's wedding," he began, his voice firm but kind, "and I think it's high time we had a family discussion about respect and humility." What followed was an hour-long conversation where Papa Ross methodically broke down the issues in our family dynamic. He talked about how Lisa's behavior had been enabled for years, recurring theme during our family interactions. I noticed that every time Jane and I would share a positive moment, Dad would quickly steer the conversation back to her past achievements, as if he couldn't let go of the image he had of her as the successful corporate star. It was frustrating, to say the least, especially since Jane was finally finding her footing and happiness outside of that world. One evening, after another family dinner where Dad had brought up Jane's old job yet again, I decided to confront him. I found him in the living room, staring at the framed photos that seemed to dominate the walls. "Dad," I said, trying to keep my tone calm, "why can't you just be happy for Lisa? She's doing something she loves now, and it's making her a better person." He turned to me, his expression a mix of confusion and frustration. "Ethan, I just don't understand why she would throw away all that potential. She worked so hard to get where she was. It feels like she's giving up." "Maybe she's not giving up," I countered. "Maybe she's just redefining what success means to her. Isn't that what we all want? To be happy?" Dad sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I just want what's best for her. I thought that was a good job, a good life. I don't want her to struggle." I could see the love he had for Lisa, but it was clouded by his own expectations. "But she's not struggling. She's finding joy in helping others and creating things. Isn't that worth celebrating?" He didn't respond, and I could tell he was still grappling with the shift in our family dynamics. I left him to his thoughts, feeling a mix of frustration and sadness. It was clear that while Lisa and I were making strides in our relationship, our parents were still stuck in the past. As the weeks went by, Lisa continued to volunteer at the community center, and I noticed a change in her demeanor. She seemed more grounded, more connected to the world around her. One day, she came into the bakery with a big smile on her face. "Guess what? I helped a senior learn how to send an email today. It felt amazing." I couldn't help but smile back. "That's awesome. You're really making a difference." "Thanks." "It's funny, I used to think success was all about climbing the corporate ladder, but now I see it's about the impact you have on others," she said, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. We continued our Sunday brunch tradition, and I cherished those moments. One Sunday, I decided to teach her how to make my famous chocolate chip cookies. She was a disaster in the kitchen, but her laughter and determination made it all worthwhile. "I may not be a natural baker, but I'm having fun," she exclaimed, covered in flour. Despite the progress we were making, the tension with our parents lingered. Dad's fixation on Lisa's past achievements continued to create an undercurrent of discomfort during family gatherings. I could see how it affected Lisa, and I worried that it might push her back into a place of insecurity. One evening, after a particularly tense dinner where Dad had once again brought up Lisa's old job, I decided to have a heart-to-heart with Mom. I found her in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner. "Mom, can we talk?" I asked, leaning against the counter. "Of course, honey. What's on your mind?" she replied, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "I'm worried about Dad. He keeps bringing up Lisa's old job, and it feels like he's not seeing how much she's grown. It's like he can't let go of the past," I said, my voice tinged with concern. Mom sighed, her expression thoughtful. "I know. Your father has always been proud of Lisa's accomplishments. It's hard for him to see her in a different light. But she's happy now, Mom. Isn't that what matters?" I pressed. She nodded slowly. "You're right. I think we all need to adjust our expectations. It's just going to take time." I appreciated her understanding, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. The next family dinner, I decided to take a different approach. I wanted to highlight Lisa's new path and the joy it brought her. As we sat down to eat, I turned to Lisa. "Hey, why don't you share some of your experiences at the community center? I think it's amazing what you're doing." Lisa looked surprised but then smiled. "Sure. I've been teaching seniors how to use computers, and it's been so rewarding. They're so eager to learn, and it feels great to help them." As she spoke, I could see Dad's expression shift. He listened intently, and for the first time. Never had Mom confessed that she had favored Lisa because she reminded her of herself at that age, ambitious and eager to leave small-town life behind. As for me, I admitted that I could have handled the wedding situation better. While I didn't regret not rushing to Lisa's aid immediately, I recognized that my inaction was partly driven by years of pent-up resentment. By the end of the night, it felt like a weight had been lifted. We didn't resolve everything in one dinner, of course, but it was a start. Lisa asked if she could come by my bakery sometime, saying she'd like to see what I had built. I agreed, albeit cautiously. As we were leaving, Papa Ross pulled me aside. He pressed a worn leather-bound book into my hands, his recipe book, the one I'd watched him write in countless times over the years. "I think you'll make better use of this than I will now," he said with a wink. "And remember, families are like bread dough, sometimes you need to let it rest, but you always come back to it with love." It's been a few weeks since that dinner, and things are different, not perfect, but different. Lisa has been making an effort to be less arrogant, and our parents have been more conscious about treating us equally. Lisa has started coming to the bakery, not just to visit but to help out. She's terrible at baking, but she's trying, and that means more to me than I can express. As for me, I'm trying to let go of some of my old resentments. It's not easy, years of feeling second best don't disappear overnight, but I'm working on it one day at a time. I know we have a long way to go, but for the first time in years, I feel hopeful about my relationship with my sister and my place in our family. I wanted to share the progress we've made as a family, as well as some new challenges that have arisen. After our family dinner at Papa Ross's, Lisa and I started to rebuild our relationship. She's been coming to the bakery regularly, not just to visit but to actually help out. At first, it was a bit of a disaster. She nearly ruined a batch of croissants and somehow managed to get flour in places I didn't even know existed in my kitchen. But she's been persistent, and I have to admit it's been nice having her around. One day, as we were closing up the bakery, Lisa confessed that she'd always been a bit jealous of my ability to create something tangible with my hands. "All those years in consulting," she said, "and I never once got to see or taste the results of my work. But here, every day, you're making something real that brings joy to people." That conversation led to us starting a new tradition of Sunday brunches, where we take turns cooking for each other. Last Sunday, Lisa attempted to bake cinnamon rolls from scratch. They were hilariously lopsided and a bit overbaked, but the effort meant more to me than any expensive gift she could have bought in her whole life. Lisa has also started volunteering at the local community center, teaching basic computer skills to seniors. It's been heartwarming to see her use her knowledge to help others without any expectation of praise or reward. She told me that working with the seniors has given her a new perspective on what's truly important in life. Our parents have been making efforts too. Dad has started showing more interest in my bakery, even asking for baking lessons. Mom, who was always a bit distant, has been making an effort to connect with both of us equally. She's been helping me with some business planning for the bakery and has been brainstorming ideas with Lisa for potential new career paths. However, just as things were improving between us, a new problem arose. Our parents, particularly Dad, seemed to be struggling with the shift in family dynamics. About a month ago, we had another family dinner, this time at our parents' house. Lisa and I arrived together, chatting amiably about a funny incident that had happened at my bakery involving a mix-up between salt and sugar in a batch of cookies. The moment we walked in, I could sense something was off with Dad. He seemed tense, his smile a bit too forced as he greeted us. Throughout dinner, Dad kept trying to bring up Lisa's old job, asking if she'd heard back from any of her important connections. When Lisa politely changed the subject, talking instead about her volunteer work, Dad's face fell. I could see the disappointment in his eyes, and it made me uneasy. After dinner, as Lisa was helping Mom with the dishes, Dad pulled me aside into the living room. The room was filled with framed photos of our family, and I couldn't help but notice how many of them featured Lisa's achievements: her high school graduation, college acceptance, first job offer. It was like a shrine to her past success.